Hello and welcome to the program. On January 29th, Ukraine commemorates the heroes of the Battle of Kruty. 101 years ago, at the Kruty railway station, hundreds of Ukrainian students defended Kyiv against an army of several thousand Bolshevik troops. To talk more about the significance of the Battle of Kruty, we welcome in our studio Igor Bigun. He's a historian at the Center for Research on the Liberation Movement. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So, first question for the viewers to understand, what do we know about this battle? Like, how many soldiers and students were on the Ukrainian side fighting against how many soldiers from the Red Army? Like, what are the official numbers, and what can you tell us more about this battle?
Thank you. It's a very good question, because even now the common knowledge about this combat is not very rich. There are numerous myths. And so let us talk a bit more about this, and to break some myths and misinterpretations about this battle. So first of all, the Kruty combat took place not on the 29th of January 1918, but on the following day, the 30th. This was proved by a Ukrainian historian, Mikhailo Kovalchuk. So the 30th of January, Ukrainian troops encountered the Bolshevist forces, and the Ukrainian side was there were about 520 people on the Ukrainian side. The students comprised the least part of this force, about 116 people. This was so-called student company. And the rest of the Ukrainian fighters were the cadets of the Ukrainian military school named after Bogdan Khmelnytsky, and free Cossacks, and some other fighters. That is about over 520, around that. So they had to fight against the Bolshevists' Red Guard troops. Their number was about 1,000 of soldiers. There were soldiers, there were Baltic sailors, there were Red Guardsmen, etc. They were led by the Russian communist Pavel Yegorov, and they called themselves the First Revolutionary Army. So the Bolsheviks were approaching at the station of Kruty. Especially they wanted to reach Kyiv. So they moved along this railroad, which led from Russia, then through Ukrainian towns and cities to Kyiv, and the station of Kruty was in front of them along their road. So the Ukrainian troops' aim was not to let the Bolshevik armies go to Kyiv.
So basically these group of students plus other companies, as you said, stood off against the Bolsheviks.
Their fight lasted for about 6 hours. So Ukrainian fighters managed to prepare some defense, some positions, and they managed to strain to stand against the approaching fighters. Although the Bolsheviks outnumbered the Ukrainians, our troops managed to stand for about 6 hours because they had machine guns, around 16 machine guns. They had two armored trains with cannons, and they had plain field in front of them. The enemy had to approach through the field, and their position was very open. So the Ukrainians were able to aim and shoot them in vast numbers.
Now, you said some sources differ, and there are myths to destroy. As of today, are there still any documents that are still classified about the Battle of Kruty, or do we have all the sources to talk openly about it today?
As far as I know, that all sources that exist in Ukraine are available for historians. Most of all these are like memories. There were some not very many documents, and basing on these sources, historians are able to reconstruct the course of this combat as in detail as it is possible. Of course, I can assume that there are some more sources in Russia, but unfortunately they are not available for for Ukrainian historians.
Now, speaking of memories here and the perception of this battle, why is this date and this battle so important for Ukrainian history? Why is it a significant date?
This is a significant date and a significant event to remember, because the combat of Kruty was one of the first combats of the young Ukrainian independent state, Ukrainian People's Republic, against the Russian Soviet Republic. And we see that volunteers were the first to fight, because Ukraine had rather big army, but this army was the old Russian Tsarist imperial army, and it didn't want to fight further, to fight for independent Ukraine. But Ukrainian volunteers, Ukrainian cadets, and Ukrainian students, they expressed their desire to fight against enemy, to fight for Ukraine, and they did it.
So you're saying that's the kind of the birth of a desire for independence, that you would fight with weapons, basically.
Exactly.
And you yourself, as a historian, like some today politicians are honoring this this battle. What's your stance about how it is taken politically today by politicians? Let's say official figures. You as a historian.
Well, it is very good that the Battle of Kruty has not been forgotten, and our first defenders are paid attention to. But unfortunately, from time to time, I witness that people who talk about it often don't have real perception of historical facts, and operate those myths that I've talked about, and they even say that there were 300 students. This is like a analogy to
with Spartans,
300 Spartans, which is not correct. That there were more Ukrainian people, and students were not in the majority, and this battle was not a fail, but it was some kind of victorious operation of Ukrainian army, because we managed to stand against, to defend this station, to retreat in organized order of battle, and to even make a delay for Bolsheviks for about 4 days.
So you're saying, drawing the comparison between the Spartans, like the easy comparison between the Spartans and those students is a bit over the top, you're saying?
Yes, it is, and I know that this analogy is made of good intentions, but in fact it plays not a very good role for commemoration of real victories.
Now, that's a good thing that you talk about commemoration. Is there any place in Ukraine, except of course the Kruty itself, any Ukrainian museum where people can learn more about this battle, where they can have more sources to read and to learn about it?
Among the primary sources, there are books about Ukrainian Revolution, about Ukrainian People's Republic Army, and about the first Ukrainian and Bolshevist War. Each study contains mentions about this combat of Kruty, and every person who is living in Kyiv can go to Askoldovo like hill and see a tomb, a grave of those 28 students who perished in, who were taken as prisoners by Bolshevik armies and were executed. So they perished in that battle.
And now to conclude this interview, why is it important for the young generation to know more about this battle, in this Ukrainian identity buildings, sort of?
It is very important to maintain memory about fighters of Kruty, because they provide an example of defenders, of fighters and warriors. They pretend as example of determination to sacrifice one's life for motherland. And as far as Ukraine wages its own war with the same enemy as 100 years ago, the Russia. So it is like a very good example which could inspire the modern generations of Ukrainian fighters.
Well, thank you for this overview. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today to talk about the Battle of Kruty.
Thank you.
That was Igor Bigun, historian at their Center for Research on the Liberation Movement. Thank you for watching the program and stay tuned for the rest.